There's a lot of discussion going on about text messages concerning conversations via text message that went on between some Lafayette City Parish Council members concerning the local government charter. So the question is about whether or not did they kind of skirt open meetings laws by using text messages to discuss some of the proposed changes. And some of the people on those text messages were different council members, as we have talked about this morning. That's in one of our stories. And then also Carly on LaBar with the Fix the Charter folks. She did send a response this morning. This is her quote from Carly on LaBar. It takes a great deal of regular communication to work through issues for our city and parish. And that is going to necessarily involve council members communicating with one another through lots of avenues, including emails, texts, phone calls, face-to-face meetings, and at council meetings. If council members only worked 2 nights a month at council meetings, very little work would get done. We're going to need to keep communicating to move our city and parish forward. Of course, at any point, if the communications that are necessary to shape good policy decisions cross over into a violation of open meetings laws, then appropriate actions should be taken. Now, obviously, we have follow-up questions for Carly on LaBar, and so we'll get to those. Jay Castile commenting that no, he was not planning on commenting about it. But Kevin Blanchard did reach out, or after we reached out to him, he did reach out to us, and he's here in studio this morning. So I guess one of the bigger questions that we have, and good morning.
Good morning, Bernie.
Thanks
for coming in.
in this morning. We certainly do appreciate it. So one of the questions that we have with this situation is there was obviously a lot of discussion going on about the Fix the Charter and, what plans should be used and what would happen kind of going forward. You had mentioned off the air to us that perhaps some of this had been taken out of context. So would you give us the context of what some of these messages are referencing?
So I think the general context is what you have is 3 councilmen and Carly and I guess in the text that have been released as part of this memo, who, I think you guys know this, like we're all friends, like in real life.
Right.
And that's how we are coordinating, like how are we going to get this thing, A, drafted, B, put onto the agenda, C, like passed, like, in other words, rather than, meeting for lunch every day and talking about like all, the group of us, how are we going to get this done? Like we did it by text. And I just want to point out, like 3 councilmen can do that.
Right.
So, there's been a lot of talk about, well, the spirit of the law. Well, the spirit of the law is also not quote unquote violated here. Like, the spirit of the law is people
In
want
your
to,
opinion.
absolutely, in my opinion, and to be just a little bit more direct, if it's the opinion of the Attorney General's office that there is a violation here, they are still free to pursue
Correct.
it.
Right.
So, I think that what you have is how do we get things done at all? Spirit of the law says we have to make sure that these debates happen in public. I think that all of the meetings referenced in these text messages and all of the things that did happen in reality, there was a lot of public discussion and a lot of talk both in the public sector and in the media about the proposal. So I have a sense that this is kind of a mountain out of a molehill.
Well,
but,
let me tell you this. Jeffrey Whale, Assistant Attorney General, says in the response that was given about the Consolidated Government Public Records Report, this is 3rd paragraph, and this is what this statement is from Jeffrey Whale. Among those text messages is a message from Councilman Kenneth Boudreaux, who states that he will take another councilman to lunch and, quote, plan to specifically ask for his support, unquote, about proposed city council districts. Exhibit A, page 1. This act would violate Louisiana 42, colon 18, which specifically forbids polling in an informal setting. Shockingly, the text message from Councilman Boudreaux continues saying, quote, I am confident I will get him or get him drunk and record his response, unquote. The second example of improper polling is found in Exhibit A, page 5. Kevin Blanchard asks, Do Liz and Nanette have an idea of what's coming? Councilman Bruce Conk responds, yes. Again, this method of polling is improper pursuant to that law and again indicates that the council members deliberated and discussed matters before the council outside of a public meeting.
Right.
So in your opinion,
No, and your listeners might not know, I am an attorney, and so, I've thought about these sorts of things, and prior to going to law school, I was a newspaper reporter, and I care a lot about open meetings and public records and everything else, and I think Bernie, that in my career, I've fought a lot about these exact issues, right? Um, what Jeffrey Whale is doing there is taking a set of text messages that the AG's office got after making a public records request for the text messages the day after they lost at trial court for the Fix the Charter lawsuit that they brought. And he's looking at the text messages and making a determination as to whether or not he
well,
thinks
what
some
were you
violation of the
talking
law has
about?
happened. He did not ask any of the councilmen
So
who were
what
on
were
those
you-
texts. He
so
didn't
what were
call
you
me or
asking?
talk. He didn't do any sort of
What
investigation.
were you saying then? And what was the intent
I wanted
of
to
this
know
text
if
message?
anybody had talked to Liz or Nanette, and if
To
they
get their opinion of what
if
they were
they
how they were
knew
going to vote?
if they knew what proposal was coming.
Meaning, and how they were going to vote? Because Councilman Bruce Conk responds, yes.
I think I said read it back to me. What I say in the quote?
Your quote is, do Liz and Nanette have an idea of what's coming?
And so again, what's the context
I'm
of the
asking.
text?
That's what I'm asking you.
And I'm saying what's not included is the context of the text is that group of three is trying to put together a package of what the maps
Which
are going
group
to
of
look.
three?
The group that's on that text message.
So
Okay.
we're talking about
Kenneth
Kenneth, Jay, and Bruce.
And Bruce.
And they're
Okay.
trying to say, okay, well, what's the thing that we're going to be bringing forward? And I got to tell you, like, the charter thing is a high profile deal. It's gotten super political. I get that. But like
Outside of the politics, as your history as a reporter, if you were a reporter in this situation, wouldn't you feel that somehow the spirit has been violated? Because you guys are talking about a particular plan, and maybe does it go forward? Do Liz and Nanette know that this has been proposed and that we're talking about this? It seems to me as if it is a situation where too many people know about something, but the public didn't get a chance to be privy to all of this particular discussion, that these three council members were polling to find out, are they in and will they proceed?
You keep using the word polling.
I'm using the word polling based on the AG's
Right.
discussion.
And I just want to be clear, like I don't think that that's polling.
Okay, and I understand.
I think polling, as the spirit and the letter of law intents, is to like take a vote, is to go in and be like,
well, were you not
have a
asking
quorum.
were you not asking in that? Because you said,
No,
did they
Bernie,
know about this
I keep
plan?
answering the same question. I'm asking, have they
Okay.
seen the proposal that's coming forward?
Mm-hmm.
So like, jump into a conclusion.
Just to close that loop, though, you say what you mean by that was, do they know what's coming? Not how are they going to vote? Do they know that this plan is coming?
That
That's
plan
what
is
you
out
say.
there,
the
is
context
what you
is.
contend.
Right. Well, that's
Okay.
literally
So we
the
were
words
getting
I
at, yeah.
said. I'm not
Okay.
contending that.
The whole movement, the Fix the Charter movement, I mean, it had a lot of people behind it. Do you think that this, in some ways, makes it look disingenuous?
No,
No?
I don't. I mean, look, there are a lot of moving parts and difficult issues that the council and the administration and people in general need to be working on in Lafayette. And if we were just going to show up on Tuesdays to council meetings and try to like work out those issues, nothing would ever move forward. In fact, people expect, I think people expect for their councilmen to be working day in and day out and not just waiting for those council meetings to happen. And so I want to reiterate, there was no quorum on these text messages. There was no polling done. This was I think, very weak legal argument put into a memo that was leaked to not just the media, but first to the folks who sued the Fix the Charter movement. And I think that there's a ton of politics going on here.
Let's take the politics out of it then.
But I don't think you can. I think that's exactly what's going on.
Well, and
I think it's a hatchet job.
I understand that. So we're the hatchets?
No, I think the release of this memo, the asking for the records, everything else, I think is 100% about politics. Because here's the thing. The Attorney General is the number one law enforcement officer in the state. You're asking me about what I think about the law and like as a reporter, et cetera, what would I do? Well, they're the attorneys that are called by statute to prosecute these cases.
Hmm.
They talked about in that memo that there's a 60-day limit that's run out. Well, that's a 60-day limit for them to go back and invalidate the charter proposal that was the subject of that,
And
right?
I've already made a request. I did that
But-
an hour or so ago
but-
to ask what happens from this point going forward.
But like, the Google legal research that I've done pulls up the statute, and you can also, there's a 60-day limit from the time that they've noticed the violation that they can bring a civil suit or any
Mhm.
other kind of action against the council people.
Which does that happen going forward?
They're not acting like a group that's actually going to do that, because if you were going to prosecute this, and this is my point earlier, you would take that information, you would start doing interviews, and you would start calling people, and you would start sitting them down and sending them subpoena requests and figuring out like what was going on, because God forbid if there's a legal violation you think there is, it's your duty to uphold the law. Instead, they've played politics. They've leaked this to the media. That's fine, but I just want to be able to say
it wasn't a leak. It was a release. Like it was a press release that was sent out with all of the documents attached.
that memo is from the AG's office to Lane Roy saying you might find this of interest.
Yeah, but I'm saying what I'm
there
saying
was
is that
already a
I'm saying
request
it-
made
yeah.
for public for the documents.
I want to just move this conversation forward. And really, thank you for being so gracious for coming
Yes,
in. Really,
we do appreciate it.
You are very involved in the Alma Bar campaign for mayor president.
She's my friend.
No secret. She is your friend, as you have said. I want to just read this
And
segment.
y'all were on the message on Saturday, July 28th. Go ahead. I
So-
think that's the one you're referencing
I
about
want-
getting drunk and recording.
Well, no,
someone's
no, a little bit
response.
forward. There was one thing that it just says, "quote If we can't convince Pat," and this is Carly to the group. If we can't convince Pat,
No,
that we
that's
need
not,
to do.
That's not Carly. That's Kenneth.
I
I was on the text
A?
message.
I think, yeah, okay.
Not what you just said, Bernie. There was a response.
There's another one?
Not the
Okay.
not the part. This has nothing to do with the take him to get a drink and recorder's response.
Mhm.
This says if we can't convince Pat, we need to do either one of two things: convince Liz not to go to Sweden. That's Liz Webb Abear, or swing this back to the March ballot. The alternative is 4 more years, and that might be the death knell for Lafayette. You're all three my friends. You're all good men. I know that when you step away from the emotions of this, you'll see the big picture here is to win over Pat's ego. 6 votes gets us on the ballot, 7 months to make the case. 5 votes gets us Mayor President William Terrio and a lopsided city council and 30 more years of disinvestment. What does this do for her campaign now, pushing forward to the fall elections?
And maybe you're gonna have to be explicit with me.
I'm just saying,
What
how does
about
it- does the
about that text message is
Does the
It makes
campaign
people
respond?
I mean, I see there she's got a strategy on how we need to be talking about getting this thing on the ballot. I see there that she's passionate about the issue, that she understands what's at stake. Like, I guess I'm not following. Like, how do you think that's going to hurt?
Well, it's
We're
not
just
my
asking.
opinion to make. I'm saying as someone who volunteers on the
Right.
campaign,
I
I'm
have-
not saying
I
it's
don't
going to
think
hurt.
that hurts her at
I
all.
say, do you respond? Does she respond? Does she defend, her section? I mean, we heard the response this morning that was sent in. I mean, and the answer could be a simple no. Does it affect the campaign?
No, I don't think it does.
So I'm referring to the Saturday, July 28th text message, which appears to be between you, Kenneth, and Carly Omlabar. Where,
Jay and Bruce.
excuse me?
And Jay and Bruce.
And Jay and Bruce, where Carly loved the comment, excuse me, that was not you. Okay, no, that's a question I will reserve to her. The question I have for you is, y'all were all on this message,
Hmm.
and Kenneth Boudreaux suggests, I am confident that I will get him, referring to Pat Lewis,
Hmm.
or get him drunk and record his response. Now, as an ethical person, do you think that's okay? You're on this text message. Why didn't you respond with a response suggesting that perhaps maybe that shouldn't be done?
Because I knew Kenneth was joking.
And how do we know Kenneth was joking?
You don't. That's the problem with these text messages. They're taken out of context. I mean, I guess that's. I hate to seem like I'm being blasé about this, but these are people. These are friends. Like, we text each other all the time about all manner of things.
And we understand that.
And so.
But
I mean, inside jokes and offhand comments and things like it's going to get you William Terrio as parish president. I mean, I don't think this is like a big
But
like
specifically
secret that we're
saying
releasing, but like,
specifically saying that one council member will work to get another inebriated and then record his response
and
that is favorable to Kenneth.
And
So
his
you
I'm
contend
a-
it was a joke.
it was 100% a joke. And yes, to be clear, just so I'm clear, if I thought that someone was going to go get someone drunk and record them, I would be like, dude, that's a bad idea. Don't do that.
Mhm.
But the reason I didn't have to say that is that I know Kenneth and I know he was joking and he was joking. And, it's kind of in context, think about the text messages you send to your friends like all the
Absolutely.
time.
I totally agree with you. I understand where you're coming from because sometimes you say stuff on text and nobody knows exactly what the context was, what you mean by that, what the inside jokes are.
Right.
Um,
And again,
but you're talking about
the
an
responsible
issue.
thing for the AG to do is to take those texts,
Mhm,
to look into the context of them, to investigate, to call people,
mhm.
to like pick up the phone or send an
Do
email.
you think
They didn't do that.
depositions? Yeah, but maybe they will still be coming. Maybe depositions, maybe from a civil side. That there
Theoretically,
might be,
it's
perhaps.
very odd if you're going to like pursue a case and the first thing you do is just get the information out. Usually, the responsible thing to do would be to first do the
Start having the
investigation and do the interviews before you just put things out without
Well, if
context.
someone requests the information from your office, you're obligated to give it, though. Those,
That's true. I'm not convinced that that's what happened in this case.
well, I am.
Okay.
All right, Kevin Blanchard, thanks for coming in.
Sure.
Really appreciate you
Yes,
responding and
you
coming
have
in.
been
Really.
very kind to come here and do this and talk to us, and that's one thing that I do think is extremely important.
All
Thank
right,
you.
you know this. I'll come here anytime.